Whoa, we are going in with a bold question. This is not easing in gently, is it? This is like a big question. Okay. Welcome to the Date with Confidence podcast, a place to come for dating advice, support, and stories that'll either fill you with hope or relief that your dating experience wasn't as bad as it could have been. With practical episodes that'll provide you with easy to implement tips to help you feel confident AF on your next date, alongside lighthearted catch-ups where your host Rebecca, that's me by the way, shares her own experience dating after 4 years of the single life. You are guaranteed to end each episode feeling less alone in your dating struggles, empowered to never settle again, and confident that the best is yet to come. And if it all falls to shit, there's a special first season dedicated to breakups. You are welcome, my friend. Subscribe, review, and share with your single friends. Hi friends, and welcome back to the Date with Confidence podcast. I'm feeling very excited about this episode because this is a Q&A episode. So I put up a poll in my stories on Instagram and said that I really wanted to do a dating Q&A, and I was like, you can ask me anything. You can ask me anything personal. It can be like a burning question you've got about dating. It can be my opinion on something. And I've had some really good questions. I haven't read through them all, but I've got them in my notes app because I was like, I don't want to focus too much on the questions before I record the podcast because I wanted my answer to be very like authentic and in the moment rather than like a let me plan the perfect answer kind of thing. So I've got some really good questions that I'm going to answer for you. And I would love to get into doing more of these kind of episodes because I love listening to this type of stuff. So if you have a question that you would like me to answer on the pod, then you can send me a message on Instagram. I'm at RebeccaLucyH, or you can send me an email, hello@RebeccaLucyH.com. Or I might even put a form in the show notes that you can just go and put your question in there. It can be completely anonymous, so that you don't have to worry about being like having your name read out, or if it's something really embarrassing or something really personal you want to ask, then that's absolutely fine. We can do that without you needing to reveal your identity. I'm not sharing the identity of the people that have asked me these questions either, because again, I think it builds a bit more of a like safe space if we don't read out names. So let's get into it. Also, can I just say before we continue, this is the first Q&A type episode I've ever done, so I don't know how it's gonna go. I'm just gonna answer and we'll see, but if I ramble on too long, then I'm not even gonna apologize. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's what we do here. So anyways, let's dive in. So the first question, how do you deal with rejection and turn it into something positive for the next date? Whoa, we are going in with a bold question. This is not easing in gently, is it? This is like a big question. Okay. I want to answer this in two parts because rejection is something that I very much struggle with. It's something that I've always really, really struggled with. I've always felt quite sensitive. I've always wanted to be chosen. I take rejection quite personally. And I do also believe that now I have got ADHD, not now I've got ADHD. Now I've discovered that it's a probability that I have ADHD. ADHD and rejection sensitivity, I want to say disorder, but I don't even know if that's right. They kind of come hand in hand. So I know a lot about rejection. I know a lot about handling it. For me personally, I have to handle rejection in almost like 2 stages. So first of all, the rejection happens and my instant response is feelings of hurt, feelings of sadness, feelings of not being good enough, sometimes, depending, and this very much depends on where I'm at that day. So if I'm having a really good day, if my mindset's in the best place, if I'm feeling really confident in myself, if I'm not on my period or it's not the lead up to my period and I'm feeling really good, then typically if rejection happens and I'm not attached to the person, or I've not started like fantasizing about future dates or anything, then the response will just be like, oh well, here's loss, never mind. And that happened when I'd been chatting to this guy on one of the dating apps. We'd been chatting for about 3 or 4 weeks. We'd booked a date in like weeks in advance because we were both really busy. I hadn't been on a date in 7 years, and it was a kind of a big deal. It was the first time someone had asked me out because I'd been in a long-term relationship, then had a really traumatic breakup. So this was the first date that I'd been asked out on and kind of agreed to. And I think it was 2 days before the date, bearing in mind we'd chatted non-stop in the lead up to it, I messaged him and was just like, oh, are we still on for Thursday? And he didn't respond. He like completely ghosted. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And in that moment I was like, oh well, his loss, doesn't matter. Like, I didn't care. I was like, do you know what? Yeah, it's kind of a bit of a bummer because I'd just got to the point where I felt like I could put myself out there after 2.5 years of being single and after kind of recovering from this breakup. But at the same time, I was very much like in the headspace of, I think I know what I want. I know that I deserve more than what I've had before in the past. I was just quite in quite a confident state. And obviously I'd never met this guy. So that's kind of one way that I initially deal with rejection. The second way is I am very sensitive to being rejected. So if it's someone that I really like, if it's someone where I thought I was going somewhere maybe, or if I'm in a vulnerable position anyway. For example, when I got back on, I kind of like paused my dating app on and off for about 1.5 years. And I'd had a big break from the apps because it was just too much. I'd lost my dog and just couldn't cope with dating anyone. Got back on the app, started chatting to this one guy, and again we were like back and forth. It was like shit chat. It was just like general, oh, what you doing the weekend? Oh, I'm going here. Like just poor chat. But then I didn't reply to him for, I don't know, a day because I was busy and it was shit chat. So why would I bother replying quickly? And when I looked on that app, he'd like unmatched from me. And that had never happened to me before. And I was just a bit like, okay. I felt quite hurt by it because I was like almost offended. And me and this guy were never going to be anything because of the shit chat. Like, I just knew, I was like, this is not my person at all. But that kind of rejection was upsetting. So in that scenario, I kind of recognize that I'm feeling rejected. I recognize that I'm feeling hurt and upset. And I try to understand what's making me feel that way and why it's an issue. And in doing that, I just kind of bring myself back to a place where I can work through the rejection in a healing, compassionate way to myself, rather than making it mean that there's something wrong with me. So instead of going, oh, they rejected me, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not funny enough, I'm not enough, full stop, I look at it and go, well, I'm steady in who I am, so that this rejection's happened for a reason. Like, maybe it was not going to be what my mind thought it was going to be, and that's why it ended, and that's fine, because better is going to come now. I've had this experience, but better is out there for me. And I am a very firm believer that if something hasn't worked in the past, it's because better is meant for you and because better is coming for you. So I really try and anchor into that belief so that I don't let it hold me back in the future, because I can get very attached to rejections and I can allow it to let me spiral into a really negative state. So instead I'm like, do you know what? Better is out there. And then I reach for my self-care tools. I open up my confidence kit. Like I immerse myself in the things that I need to do to get me back to feeling amazing, so that I don't let this small event really, really impact me. And the second part of this question, so it was, how do you deal with rejection and turn it into something positive for the next date? I reflect on what wasn't good. So rather than kind of romanticizing what was amazing, I reflect on the things that were perhaps maybe red flags, or maybe things that weren't quite there that I was perhaps overlooking. And I use that and go, okay, well, the next one's going to be better. And I can remember to look out for these things so that it doesn't happen again. I think that's all I want to say on that. The next question is, how do you stay consistent on dating apps? And honestly, my honest answer is I don't. I have never been consistent on dating apps. I'm not consistent at anything in my life. Part of that's ADHD. I get bored really easily. I don't like doing the same thing over and over again. For me, I date when I feel like I am in the place to date, which is perhaps a fault slightly, because I will only date when I'm feeling amazing, almost like I only deserve to date when I'm feeling really good about myself, which is something that I've been working on with my mindset coach. And honestly, if I need to take a break, I need to take a break. I had been out of the dating game for years. So I'd been in a 5-year relationship. We'd kind of been like seeing each other for 7 years, officially together for 5 years. I hadn't been on any first dates for a very long time because we'd had the traumatic breakup. I was single for 2.5 years before I even opened up the dating apps. And I started with the dating apps, got chatting to a few guys, went on a first date with someone in a kind of like 5-6 week period. And then I took a break for 6 months because I was like, no, this is too much. Like I can't handle this right now. Took a break for 6 months, opened up the apps, started chatting to a couple of guys, went on some more dates. Those dates were nice, but they weren't what I wanted, through no fault of theirs, but just weren't matches. And then I lost my dog, took another break for about 4 or 5 months, got back on the apps, and yeah, like chatted to a few people, and I think we're going to leave that there because I'm going to do another episode on the kind of dates that I have been having recently, and they're very nice. So the answer is I don't stay consistent, and I'm not going to beat myself up for not being consistent on dating apps. It's fine. It is what it is. Right. Dating apps bore me. How can I make this fun? Oh my God. Me too. I do not enjoy being on dating apps at all. I'm not going to lie, I kind of like the validation you get. So I like the little dopamine hit of like, this guy likes you, this guy likes you. That's nice, especially having been single for so long. I haven't had anyone to validate me. I haven't had anyone really pay me attention because I've been very closed off to anything in a romantic sense. So having that validation of, oh yeah, okay, people are interested in me is very nice. But then I go on people's profiles and I'm like, no, you're not what I want. So it bores me as well. I hate shit chat. As I have mentioned previously, a lot of people are just don't give you anything. And I don't have the time for it. I don't have the patience for it. It's not for me. So there will be quite often where I'll start chatting to guys and we'll have a few sentences and it'll be like, what have you been up to this weekend? Where's the next place you want to travel to? What do you do for a job? And it's not for me. And I'm not engaged. Like I'm not engaged enough in the conversations to find it exciting. But then what I will say is this can all change when you match with the right person, because I don't even know how to say this. Someone I am dating at the moment, our conversations were instantly very deep, very intense, like 3 or 4 paragraphs a message, not talking about jobs and where do you want to travel next, and it wasn't shit chat. And then it became a bit more interesting because I was like, oh my God, I'm actually connecting with someone. Like this person actually gives a shit about what I want to say. And then it was more fun. So in all honesty, I don't know how you can make it more fun. I would say that there are other ways that you can date and that you can meet people. There are events that you can go to, especially if you live in a city. Like I'm like right on the outskirts of London, so there's always lots of single nights or like single events. So you could perhaps try things like that. But I would say use the dating apps intentionally. And also, I'm very specific in my dating profile. Like, my dating profile is really specific and it's very intentional. And I created it with the intention of weeding out all the people that I weren't interested in. Which, I mean, yeah, you still get shit chat, but it's very specific around this is what I want. Like, I know what I want. I know what I deserve now. This is what I'm looking for. And I think that helps because then you do match with people who are in a similar way. And I've actually got a course called Attract on the Apps, and it's all about how to write a dating profile that attracts the right people to you, which is working out quite well for me right now. So you can check that out in the show notes if you want to know how to just how to create a good dating profile that stands out to people. And this is something that I've had comments on as well, so this is not just me like thinking, oh yeah, my profile's really good. Like, it's actually been mentioned to me that my profile was very appealing and it stood out because of what I wrote in it. So yeah, and you can see exactly what I wrote in it in the Attract on the Apps course. The next question, are there really some apps better than others to find relationships? Honestly, I don't know. I have only ever been on Hinge. I specifically avoided Tinder because I wasn't up for casual sex and sleeping around. It wasn't really what I wanted at this point in my life. Maybe when I was younger I'd have gone for Tinder, but I specifically didn't choose that because I know it's a really popular one. But from what I've heard, it's very much geared towards hookups, casual dating. It's not particularly serious. There's an app that I really liked the sound of called Thursday, where you only match with people on a Thursday with the intention to see them that day. I never signed up, but I really loved the concept of it. And I think that would be a really cool one to go on. But at the same time, I can also see how that could be quite a hookup kind of app. Which again, there's no shade around, like, if you just want to hook up and sleep with people, like, that's great. At a certain point in my life, that was exactly what I wanted. At this point in my life, it's not. And I specifically didn't download Bumble because I don't want to be the first one to talk. I like it when someone introduces themselves to me. So, in all honesty, I don't know. Based on the person that I'm dating at the moment, I would recommend Hinge because I feel like the connection we've had, I feel like, I essentially feel like I asked for what I wanted. I made it very clear what I wanted in terms of put it out there in the universe. And what has been delivered in this human is everything I wanted and so much more. So, and if I hadn't been on Hinge, then that wouldn't have happened. So I do think that Hinge is a good one, especially because there's lots of prompts and stuff that you can answer. I didn't particularly answer a lot of prompts, but my prompts are things like, what are you looking for? Or I don't even think it's what are you looking for. I can't remember. As I said, my exact profile that I've been using, I've put it in the Attract on the Apps course, so it's in there. But you can be very specific with your answers. You can answer good prompts that allows you to get to know someone, and I don't know whether that's the case on other apps. The next question is, who should pay on a first date? Who should pay on a first date? My views on this have very much changed from when I was younger. When I was in my early 20s, when I was dating, I expected the date to pay. I expected the guy to pay. If I'd been asked out on a date, I expected him to pay. And I still, to a certain extent, I kind of agree with that. I think if they have initiated the date, then I would expect them to pay. And the only exception I would kind of make for this is if we were on the date and I knew that I wasn't going to see them again. I knew that they weren't going to be for me. And I knew it was very much going to be like a friend zone. I'm not going to see you. I'll let you down gently kind of thing. I would happily agree to pay half, and I would happily suggest splitting it, because I don't, you know, when you watch First Dates and the guy offers to pay and the girl just sits there and says nothing, waits for the guy to pay, and then they get in the room and she's like, yeah, I don't want to see you again. I personally think that's a bit shitty. That's my personal opinion. I think if you know you're not going to see someone and it's not going to go anywhere, I think allowing them to pay for the whole thing. If you offer and they go, no, I've got it, it's fine, that's absolutely okay. But if you sit there quietly and you don't offer to pay when you know damn well you're never going to see them again, it doesn't sit right with me. It's not my thing. So when I was younger, yeah, I very much expected the guy to pay. And in fact, the bill used to come up and I would purposefully go to the toilet so that I kind of just was like, okay, I hope that he's just going to pay. But now I feel very different. And I also think it's very interesting. I went on a date a few months ago and this guy was lovely. He was a really great guy. He booked for us to go to this museum in London. We went to this like interactive museum thing, booked it, paid for the tickets, amazing, had a really nice time, and then we went for dinner afterwards. So we go for dinner, finish eating, and I'm like, right, I'm just going to go to the toilet, come back, and we carry on chatting for a while, and I have every intention of picking up the check for the meal because, in my opinion, he's paid for the museum, I'm going to pay for the meal. I think that's fair. We've both been on this date, it's like expanded, whatever. Go for dinner, and then I'm like, okay, I need to go home now. Like, let's get ready. And he's like, okay, then come then. And I was like, well, no, we've got to pay. And he's like, oh, I've already got it. And I really liked that. I do appreciate it when a guy pays. But that was like a nice little surprise. But then we didn't end up seeing each other again afterwards because it had been a couple of weeks and whatever. But then I've also been on dates, like, at the moment, I feel very comfortable, especially when it's someone that you really connect with. I very much want to be an equal partner. Like, yes, don't get me wrong, I love it. I find it really attractive when a guy pays for stuff. And this happened again the other night. Like, we'd been out, I'd bought cinema tickets because it was like a third day. I'd bought the cinema tickets, he bought us snacks, and then we went out for dinner afterwards. And I got back to the table and was like ready to split it, and he'd already paid. And I was like, I wasn't expecting it at all, because we were kind of, in our other dates, we've kind of been 50-50, and I like that. I don't want anyone to think that I'm taking advantage or I'm just dating people to get free dates or anything like that. And I'm sure that wouldn't be the case. But yeah, who should pay on a first date? It's entirely up to you. I like it when a guy offers, but I would always offer myself. I always offer to split it, and it's a nice surprise if they're like, no, I've got it. Like, that's great. And then if I know I'm going to see them again, it's like, okay, well, I'll get drinks next time. Or sometimes you don't even need to say that. Like, it is what it is. The next question, do you swipe right? This is such a good question. Do you swipe right if you fancy their mate in the photo? Do you swipe right if you fancy their mate in a photo? This is so tricky. And I've like experienced this as well, where I've seen someone's profile and you see the first photo and you're like, oh, I really hope their mate is or I really hope this is the guy's profile. And then you scroll down and you realise that it's not, it was a friend. I personally haven't swiped right if I fancied their mate more, because I think it would be really awkward. And okay, if you go on a date with them and there's not really a connection and you're like, I don't know, can you hook me up with your mate instead? Like, it just might be quite offensive and it could potentially really hurt someone's feelings. So I just personally never have. If you have or you would, that's fine. It's not for me, because also if you started dating this guy, started to get to know him, liked him, and then met his mate in the flesh and was like, actually, I fancy his mate, that's just putting yourself in a disastrous situation. It's not necessary at all. So no, but you do you. Next question is, do you give people your WhatsApp number? I found this really weird. When I first started dating, like on the dating apps, and guys would ask me for my WhatsApp number, I'm just a bit like, but why do you want my WhatsApp number? Like, why do you want to speak to me on WhatsApp? I was new to it, so I didn't really know whether that was a thing. Whereas now I kind of, like, I prefer WhatsApp. I hate the app in general. It's irritating. I'm happy to chat on WhatsApp, although I did change my WhatsApp settings because my WhatsApp had like my website and my social media handles, my email address and like my businessy stuff on it. And if I'm matching with guys, I don't necessarily want them to go and stalk my business before we've been dating, because I feel like, and I purposefully as well don't stalk other people's social media, because I feel like we can build up our own perceptions of people before we meet them. And in doing so, I think it can ruin any chance of like a genuine connection, because you've already got your perception of what they are like based on what they put online. And I don't want that. Like, I don't know. I like to meet someone and it be very genuine and authentic. But yeah, I give people my WhatsApp number. I'm not fussed about it. But I think, again, it's kind of got to be, that's your boundary. Like, if you don't want to give out your number, don't give out your number. And if they're adamant that they want to speak to you on WhatsApp or they're not going to speak to you anymore, then see you later, mate. You are not a good one. That's like got red flags all over it. So it's your choice. Then we have, how can you trust someone to set you up on a blind date? Oh my God, I love this. How can you trust someone to set you up on a blind date? I think if you are going on a blind date with someone, or if someone's setting you up on a blind date, then typically they are your friend, unless it's someone that you don't know, obviously. But I'm assuming in this scenario that they are your friend, and if they are your true friend, they would want you to have a good experience, and they wouldn't want you to be in a uncomfortable situation. They've probably got someone in mind that they would that they think you would match well with. So really it depends how much you trust the person that's setting you up on a blind date. And also, I do think like dating's supposed to be fun. Like, surely going on a blind date is a lot more fun than matching with someone on an app. I think that I would look at it as, oh my God, this is going to be so exciting because I don't know who they are, don't know what they're like. It's that almost like when you bump into someone in a bar kind of thing. It's that kind of vibe. So I think just go through it with an open mind. Make sure that it's a person that you trust. And if it's a bad date, it's a bad date. It's not the end of the world. You'll just have a story of a bad date at the end of it. And if it turns out amazing, then amazing. And okay, last question. How do you reject a friend of a friend without making it awkward for everyone? Ooh, how do you reject a friend of a friend without making it awkward for everyone? I think, first of all, it really comes down to the way that you deliver that information. If you can let people down gently. We did a whole podcast episode on how to break up with someone in the kindest way possible. And I know that this isn't like breakup terms, or like in the kind of breakup zone, but this is still applies to rejection in general. So you might want to just have a listen to that episode. But I think as long as you're kind, as long as you're honest, as long as you communicate it in a way that isn't about them. And what I mean by that is, when you're giving your feedback, it's not, well, you do things this way, I don't like the way you chew loudly, I don't think I'd get on with your friends, like you annoy me kind of thing. Like, you don't want to make it about them. What you want to do instead is give the feedback with, I feel like there wasn't a connection, I feel like I'm looking for something different, I feel like this wouldn't work. You can say it in a really kind way and make it kind of about like, how can I say this? So it's, I feel like this, I feel like that, not attacking, you're this way, you're that way, because that can be quite abrasive and can be quite hurtful for someone. Just be kind and just let your friend know as well. Like, if they're your friend, they're going to understand that you've rejected their friend. Like, at the end of the day, your friends should support you no matter what, and your friends should want what's best for you. And if you've realised that their friend isn't what's best for you, they should love and support you enough to accept that that's your decision and it not be an awkward thing. So I hope that this was helpful in some way, shape or form. I loved answering your questions. So please do send more in, and then I can maybe do these more regularly. You can literally ask me anything as well. So you can ask me questions where you actually need advice or support. You can ask me personal things about my own dating life. You can ask me whatever you like. I just find these episodes really fun to do. Don't forget, you can grab a tract on the apps via the show notes, and that's really about how to create a dating profile that actually attracts the right people to you, so that you can have better dates. And yeah, that's what we all want, right? Okay, I hope this was helpful. I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for listening to the Date with Confidence podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Subscribe, rate and review, and share it with your single friends.